Because this morning we are marking 10 years since the impassioned speech of a Prime Minister that echoed through the corridors of Parliament and around the world.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not. And the government will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. Not now, not ever. The Leader of the Opposition says that people who hold sexist views and who are misogynists are not appropriate for high office. Well, I hope the Leader of the Opposition has got a piece of paper and he is writing out his resignation. Because if he wants to know what misogyny looks like in modern Australia, he doesn't need a motion in the House of Representatives, he needs a mirror.
Ooh, that was, of course, former Prime Minister Gillard, and she joins us now this morning, 10 years on from that epic speech. Good morning. Welcome back to Breakfast TV.
Good morning. Good to be back with you.
Nice to see you. I mean, it does feel like yesterday in some respects. I mean, people were surprised with your speech when it happened, but having been on the show with Tony Abbott for a good couple of years and seeing you towel him up every day, I wasn't surprised.
Yes, Karl, you and I and Tony, we were together forever, basically, weren't we, doing the Friday segments on your show, on the Today Show. So, yes, we'd had plenty of practice sparring before we got to the misogyny speech.
How do you feel watching, snippets of that speech back again now?
Well, I only ever see snippets. I've never sat and watched the thing all the way through again because I want my memories of that day to be my memories, not sort of mediated through watching the vision again. I'm proud, though, that it's come to mean so much for so many women and that they take it with them as a bit of an anthem when they're feeling oppressed or needing extra energy. That does make me proud. And, of course, for the 10-year anniversary, we've got a book, Not Now, Not Ever, out, which talks about the speech, but possibly more importantly, kicks it forward and says, what do we need to do next? And the proceeds of the book go to support the Global Institute for Women's Leadership. So more research to tell us the best ways to get change.
Could you have done any more as PM to address it?
Oh, look, I think you always look back and think you could have done this or you could have done that. But I tried to do as much as I could as Prime Minister in the sense that every day was precious and every day we were trying to drive big reforms forward. On sexism and misogyny, I do specifically regret, though, not calling it out earlier. I had thought when I first became Prime Minister that the maximum reaction to me being the first woman would be in the early days and then it would wash its way through the system and normalise. I was clearly wrong on that, and knowing what I know now, that it was just going to gather and get worse, I do think potentially if I'd called it out earlier it would have been a bit easier. But you never get to run the control test in politics, so we'll never quite know.
Did you know when you were delivering that speech that this was something that was going to resonate in the way that it did and that it would probably create headlines globally?
Oh, absolutely no idea. I knew that it was a powerful speech in the Parliament because you're actually pretty close to the opposition and you can tell from their reactions how a speech is going, and they were getting more withdrawn over time, kind of dropping their heads, so that I knew it was landing powerfully there. But I had no insight into the fact that it would go round the world or that we'd be talking about it a decade later.
I have two beautiful daughters and I just don't know whether politics, I'd want that for them.
Well, I hope that they and young women and girls around Australia do think seriously about politics. It is still a gendered experience, but I do think it's getting better. And it does give you a lot of ability to put your values into action and to change the world. So, when I look back at my time in politics, yes, there were all the gendered insults and all the rest of it, but I got to do things like create the National Disability Insurance Scheme and being involved in things like that really changed the nation for the better is an absolute privilege, and that's what politics is.
We haven't seen a female US president yet. We haven't seen a female Prime Minister in Australia since you. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think here there will be another woman and another woman and another woman. Obviously not soon, because I'm hoping that Prime Minister Albanese is there for a long, long time. But I do think on the Labor side, when you look at the ranks in Labor now, it's half men, half women, and that's what you need to create the environment where women come through for leadership around half of the time. You can't get there if you don't have that sort of equal starting class, or it's very difficult to. In the US, I think it's even more complicated again, because money and power are so intertwined in the US. And I think the fact that they haven't had the first means that, you know, they haven't been through some of the discussions that we've been having in Australia over the last 10 years, which I do genuinely think will make it easier for the next woman. Having said that, I think people did watch Hillary's experiences, and in the years since have been reflecting on how much what happened to her was just straight out old-fashioned sexism. So perhaps for the next woman that would help inform the debate.
It looks to me and it feels to me, and what I'm hearing this morning from you is that you really miss it.
Do I miss the Today Show really early every Friday morning? Well, of course I do.
Of course.
But there are some bits about politics that I miss a great deal. Certainly that ability to bring big change, I really miss that. But there are things that I don't miss, the sheer relentlessness of it. I mean, it's a pretty hard lifestyle, and there's lots of sort of intrusion into your personal life, into your family life. So it's nice now to be able to get about my private life without it being all about headlines and media. So there are some things that are much better for me now.
Well, it is so lovely to talk to you this morning. I can't believe it's been 10 years, and even just listening to it then, you can almost, you know, saying it out loud alongside with, along with you. So really lovely to talk to you, Julia. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
Thanks so much.
Shocking amount of money government spent on advertising campaigns has been revealed. It is eye-watering. Around $630 million spent by successive governments since 2008. That's more than Harvey Norman, Woolworths and Macca's. But if the funds are paying for ads like this, who can argue with it?
Taxes, yes, taxes. We will tax all of them. So much money. No,
Di,
you idiot.
surely there needs to be some rules around this now.
I think so. As an independent, we don't have money to spend on political advertising at all. I mean, for me, I use my own funds to in terms of the campaign, and the community contributed to it. No money in advertising. So I think the major parties having that fund is, first of all, you know, it's taxpayers' money to fund to promote their own machinery. So I think that it needs to be really reassessed.
Scott, what do you reckon?
Well, look, that's the trouble here, as Di says. Look, there are legitimate reasons why governments should be advertising their programs. But that ad you just gave then, and plenty of other examples, not just at the federal level, but also at the state level, where we see the government in power at the time using taxpayers' money really to run a political campaign, its own election campaigns.
OK, can you believe it? It's been 10 years since Prime Minister Julia Gillard made that very important speech, this moment.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not. And the government will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. Not now, not ever.
Di, where were you when that speech was made, and what did you think of it?
I actually just got elected onto council, and I remember that speech. I think it was at home, and I just thought, wow, you know, like having that first female Prime Minister calling that out, and I thought, wow, I didn't realise how bad it was inside Parliament. Obviously today, being elected into federal Parliament, it's hard to assess because there are two male leaders, so whether or not the language will be the same as back then as today if there was another female leader.
Do you still feel, though, in Parliament that there is an enormous amount of work to be done?
Oh, look, I think there still is. I mean, if you watching what's happening on the floor, I think the debate or that whole drama still thinks similar. The language is still the same. I think what we need to learn is that respect. We need to have that respect. The way that we talk to one another has to actually change. At the moment, like I've only knew for the last 4 months, but watching what's happening on the floor, I don't know. But it
Have
hasn't
you
changed that much.
experienced a level of misogyny?
No, I mean, look, you know, I think, like I said, if you treat one another with respect, I think it's a two-way street. It's just a short time there, not yet.
Maybe that's the sign of how far things have come. Obviously, still a fair way to go. But Scott, what did you make of that speech?
Oh, look, it is an historic speech. It was significant. I think people will have, I guess, unshackled it from the circumstance of the time. Remember, Gillard was being questioned about claims of sexual harassment by the speaker she put in, Peter Slipper, at the time. So she was defending her own actions at the time. But it is an historic speech. 10 years on, you hope that a matter of respect, especially for women in politics, has improved in that 10 years. I'm just not sure by how much.
OK, we'll leave it there. Great to talk to you guys. Thank you at the start of a working week. Appreciate it.